Hello, Russ Eanes. Welcome to Paso del Camino, a project on the Camino Santiago to the Camino Santiago. And it's really a pleasure for me to have you here. You are a pilgrim, a writer, and much more about the Camino. And it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I love to talk to anyone about the Camino.
So let's start from the beginning. Um, how your life on the Camino has started? How you find about the Camino?
That's a great question. I first read about it in a book about 20 years before I walked it. It was a book about a medieval English mystic named Marjorie Kemp, and she said that she went on pilgrimages, and she mentioned going to Santiago de Compostela. And I said, what was that? I knew Rome, I knew Jerusalem. And then for about the next 10 years, I kept meeting people who had walked the Camino de Santiago or had biked it or been there. And I learned more and more about it. And I got really interested in it as something I might want to do. And then in 2008, a friend of mine named Arthur Paul Boers uh, published a book about walking the Camino called The Way is Made by Walking, and he signed a copy and gave it to me, and I read the book very quickly. And when I read the book, I said, I have to do this. I have to take time off, months of my life off, and I've got to go walk this the whole way, all 500 miles, just like he did. And so and I continued to meet more people after that. I watched the movie The Way. I watched documentaries, and met David Landis, who publishes the Village to Village guidebooks. David lives here in town, this one right here. And David and his wife Anna published the Village to Village guidebooks, and he gave me a copy. And so my question was never, from that point on, it was not, will I do it? It was, when will I do it? And people said to me, well, you could go walk it for 2 weeks this year, and then the next year go back and walk 2 more weeks, and then go back and walk 2 more weeks. And I said, no, I want to take time completely off, because I think that a pilgrimage for that long changes your life, and I need a life change. And so the I did lots of other, I would go to other pilgrimage locations like Iona in Scotland or Lindisfarne in the UK. Did lots of traveling and hiking, but never for very long. And then in 2017, I decided I was going to leave my job. And my wife, I decided I was going to take a whole year off, a year long sabbatical. And my wife said, the first thing you need to do in that sabbatical is you need to go walk the Camino.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, do you know? More as a volunteer, more as a hospitalero. Sometimes I find pilgrims that are not really that prepared, not physically but mentally for the Camino. The Camino is a roller coaster of emotion. You have really nice moments, but you also have some sad moments or moments where are you way down and are you struggling with the idea. For me, for my second Camino, that was the first one walking. In sometimes, but most almost arriving in Santiago, some 1 or 2 days before arriving in Santiago, I was really struggling with my pain, my knee pain, my the blisters, and it suddenly it keeps to it comes to my head to drop out and go home. Um, do you feel that your time as a pastor helped you to prepare mentally for the Camino?
Yeah, I think it did, because I didn't only prepare physically or train physically, but I prepared mentally and inwardly for what I would do. In fact, in my book, I talk about developing these 7 principles of my walk. And I feel like those were really, really important, because they kind of gave me the inner foundation, the spiritual foundation of walking, um, and really made a difference, because I could remind myself of them over and over again. Like the first one was I was going to try to go about 25 kilometers a day, and I think the most I walked one day was 30. But I met people that and this happened twice. I met Americans walking. Well, it wasn't just Americans, but several Americans and some others walking the Camino, and I would meet them at a rest, while I was resting on a bench, and they would come by for a minute and take a drink of water or something, and they would tell me, "Well, I got to go because I have to walk 40 kilometers today because I only have a short amount of time to do this. Goodbye." And I was glad that that pace was just far enough that I could, take my time walking during the day, but still not be gone so long that, I'd be gone too long. And it's fine if people go slower, but I appreciated that pace, or just my decision that I wasn't going to make reservations or anything was a way of just kind of being open to whatever happened on a day. Or the decision to carry my pack the whole way was important because I said, well, I've got to limit what I put in it, and I still, people ask, how big of a pack should I take? And I said, take the smallest pack you think you can get away with, because you will learn the freedom of not having lots of stuff. So those are, I set 7 principles, and they were really important to me as I went along the way.
It's amazing. Do you know some? Sorry, I forgot. Anyway, I have a question. The Camino is full of moments and of amazing moments, and some are magical, and some people can't describe it how they happen. I had experienced that some too, but I can, for you as American, I on my first Portuguese Camino in 2018, I met like these 3 girls from Seattle, and it was a friend. Uh, we came to be friends like instantly. It was like really close after we met in Pontevedra on the Portuguese Camino, and and after that day, after our encounter, we decided to walk together. And like I said you before, I am religious, and I really am really devoted to Saint James. In that Camino, I used to walk with kind of like, it was not this but similar, like this image of Saint James attached to my wood stick. And in one of the middle of the stage, the wood stick had fallen to me, and the image had broken up, slipped the head and the rest of the body. Okay, but I then I went up to pick up some glue and joined together and then walked again. When I arrived in Santiago, in that day, it happened something had happened in their hotel with these girls, and they had a problem. So we cannot be able to arrive together in St. James. So I was calling them, and nothing. On to in the night on that day, I went to the Pilgrim's Mass, and I was in the Pilgrim's Mass, and I suddenly in the middle of the mass, I saw like this young guy that I have just seen it for the first time in that stage, in the left stage. It was from a couple, a young couple from California, uh, and this guy, of course, this guy and his wife and his girlfriend, they didn't anymore see the girls. They didn't know the girls, and suddenly on the mass, I will sit down in the middle of like this big group of Chinese people, and suddenly he put me like this. Hey, how are you? Did you arrive Santiago? Okay, okay, yeah. Do you know your friends are expecting you. After the mass, go there, go to a bar and call them. They are expecting you. Okay, so after the mass, I went there. I finally met with them in St. James in Santiago, and and actually they offered me again this like this image of St. James, and it was really special. and it was one of my best moments on the Camino. Um, Imagine that we could turn back time, and you can relive your best moment on the Camino. Which moment you chose?
Oh boy, that's a real hard one to say. What was my best moment in the Camino? Because I had so many.
Yeah,
Um, I think I think a moment that stands out to me was I left the little village of Portos on my way to O Sobrero, and I was stopping in a village along the way. I'll think of that village in a second. And uh, let's see, it was Trabadelo.
yeah,
And on my way there, I had to go through Villafranca um, de Bierzo, and
yeah,
um, it's like maybe a few kilometers. And I was coming into the village, and I met two women that I'd gotten to know very well. They were sisters from Wisconsin, and we stayed at albergues together and had meals together and became very good friends. But they had stayed in a different place the night before, and I met up with Pam and Kathy, and right as I was entering the village, and we were at the famous church, which is entering Villafranca del Bierzo, where there's a doorway you can go in, and if you get that far in the Middle Ages, pilgrims could be forgiven, because they couldn't get all the way to Santiago. If they got that far, they could receive forgiveness. And we were looking at the architecture, and I stayed and took a few pictures, and the two of them walked on a little bit, and just below that is a very famous albergue, Phoenix,
yeah, yeah.
albergue
I
Phoenix.
know, I know.
And I was walking past it, and I noticed there was a little car, a little station wagon backing up. I think he was transporting packs for pilgrims. And he looked out the window and he saw me, and all of a sudden he stopped the car real fast. And he shut off the engine. He jumped out of the door, jumped out of the car, slammed his door, and walked over to me, and very firmly he grabbed a hold of me and turned me around. And he started pushing me into the albergue. And I thought, what is he doing? He was speaking Spanish, and I had no clue what he was saying, but he was friendly. But he was pushing me into the albergue. I had no idea why. And as we got into the entryway, he reached up and he pulled the pack off my back. And I thought, I don't know what is going on. I'm just going to do whatever he says. I've been on the Camino almost 4 weeks. So I'm like, whatever's happening, just accept what's ever happening. Don't try to raise questions. And then he opened the door to the kitchen, the dining room, and he pointed at the food, and he basically said, "It's free." He said it in Spanish. I think he said libre, or I forget the word, but he said, "It's all free." And I looked in there, and the breakfast was all laid out, and it was a fabulous breakfast. It was more than the usual Spanish breakfast, of toast and,
Yeah.
and coffee. There were eggs and vegetables and fruits all laying there. He said, "You can have it all. Anything you want. It's all free." Because the pilgrims had left, and they'd left a lot of breakfast behind.
Mhm.
And I thought, here I was, unsure. What is he grabbing me? What is he pulling me to? What is going on? I still have the suspicions of, even though I've been 4 weeks on the Camino, you're still a little bit like, I don't know if this is right or not. What's he doing? And then I realized he was showing me to a feast,
That's
and
amazing.
eat all you want.
That's
And I
amazing.
just laughed to myself thinking, that's the way so much life is, that there is a feast waiting for us somewhere. And we are holding back. We are suspicious. We are worried. There's something about it. We're not ready to accept it. And that experience still stands out to me, because basically he stopped and pulled me into a feast, and he had to do it. I didn't know it was there, and I was resistant at first. And then I had a nice meal, and I walked on, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed at myself about that experience. And I feel like the Camino de Santiago was like that. There's just this feast all along it for 500 miles. We just have to discover it. We have to be ready for that feast. And walking on the Camino, there are some low days, some days where the weather's bad, or I walked solo. So there are days when you feel lonely, and there are wonderful days where you have fabulous experiences with other pilgrims. You see incredible scenery. It's a wonderful day of walking. It's everything up and down. But just that one day, just the way I was not expecting it, And I just felt like that encapsulated so much of the Camino, that it's a feast. And the feast may not be great food. It might not be, who knows what it might be. It might be people we meet. It might be an experience. It might be something that dawns on us. And yes, I had so many moments like that.
Yeah.
Another moment that was wonderful was actually when I was approaching. I had left. Let me think where this is. This is I was going into Santo Domingo, and you cross over a little ridge there, and to come down into not Santo Domingo, to into um so you pass through Villafranca going into San Juan de Bautista, and in Ages, and there's a ridge there, and I was walking up. It was all misty. I couldn't really see the mountain or see on the other side, and just this wonderful sense of, yes, it might be a bit cold out. Yes, it might be misty, but I'm in the most wonderful place in the world right now. I'm walking the sacred landscape of the Camino. And just all these thoughts of people I'd known and wonderful things that had happened in my life just came to me at that moment. And I felt a real thankfulness. So there are just so many experiences just to say what is the best one. Of course, I was very happy when my wife met me. I hadn't seen her for 4 weeks, and she came and walked with me for the last 113 kilometers. She met me in Sadia, and I was able to share with her she met people that I'd met, and she understood what it meant like to be a pilgrim. And then when I got into Santiago, she was with me. It was a beautiful day in May, and so I'd had this wonderful experience, and the person that meant the most to me was there for me. So, many wonderful experiences. I think of them every day. For almost 3 years, I've been thinking of them every day.
That's amazing. Actually, that is really my next question. That part I didn't know, but I know that you walked the pilgrimage to Assisi with her. How it was like that?
How did I walk? What?
The pilgrimage to the Camino de Assisi.
Yes. So the year after that, in 2019, I walked from. My wife and I wanted to go somewhere again, and we wanted to go somewhere different. And so I had known about the Via de Francesco in Italy, and we decided we couldn't walk the whole way. It's 500 kilometers, but we would walk half of it. And so we decided to go to Rieti, which is a village, and walk to Assisi. Very different experience, very different culture. The landscape is more wild and more rugged, but the hilltop towns in Italy are just indescribable, beautiful, wonderful places to stay. And I want to go back as soon as I can. I wanted to go back last year. Obviously, I didn't go back. I want to start in Florence and walk to Assisi, going the other direction, because I just loved it so much. I very much love St. Francis, and the Umbrian Mountains are beautiful.
Yeah. So please talk us about this. Talk us about your book.
Yes. So I was a book publisher for a long time and published books for many people. I love writing. And I wanted to, when I left my job, I wanted to start as a freelancer. I wanted to do some writing, but I had no idea that I would write a book. And when I met people along the way, they said, "Are you going to write a book about this?" And I said, "Nope, I'm not writing a book about this. I'm just walking it for the experience of walking it. That's it." And I felt that way until the very end. And then about 2 weeks after I came back, I'm also a bicyclist. I was out riding my bike in the countryside, and this idea just came into my head. You need to write a book about that experience, because I had written a lot of things about it. I had told a lot of people about it, but I said, I've got to write a book about that. And it took me over a year, but writing of the story became a fabulous way to process the experience. I could think about all the wonderful people I'd met through the various highlights and experiences, all the lessons I'd learned, and I put it creatively. I got to put it in a way, kind of creatively, as a story. I mean, it's the all the things I learned and people I met are all just placed along the way. So I begin at the beginning and I end at the end. And it starts with me walking out my door at home, and it ends with me walking back in the door at home. And everything I learned is stuck somewhere along the way. And I love the experience of writing it almost as much as I loved walking it. And so actually that's what I do now is I'm mostly, I'm writing books about experiences I have of I call them slow travel, where I slow travel or deep travel, like walking on a Camino. I have another book I'm working on about walking the Via de Francesco in Italy. I'm right now actively working on a book about a bike ride I took last year in the U.S. because we couldn't travel. I took a long bike ride along a unique route here in the U.S.
The Appalachians?
And pardon me?
The Appalachian Trail? Or a different
No,
one? No.
this is a bike ride from Pittsburgh to
Okay.
Washington, D.C. And it's called the Great Allegheny Passage and the C&O Towpath, and it follows an old railroad line that's abandoned. So they've turned the railroad line into a bike trail.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then the canal route is also an abandoned canal. And you walk along, you ride the towpath. So it was 335 miles, and I'm writing about that. I've lived near there most of my life. It has a fascinating history. So this is the kind of writing I do, but this all came out from walking on the Camino because I feel like this love of writing emerged while I was walking the Camino de Santiago.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, like I said to you before, I am volunteer at an albergue, and I do also more stuff about the Camino. Are you in other ways related to the Camino?
Have I got other ways related to the Camino?
Yeah.
I would like someday to go back and walk more of it. I would like to go back someday with my wife and be hospitaleros.
Yeah, that's amazing.
When I was walking the Camino Frances, there were about 4 places that I will pass through. I said, I would love to come back here for 2 weeks and be a hospitalero. The place I loved the most was Rabanal.
Yeah.
There's the Guaselmo albergue run by the Confraternity of St. James. And if the Brits would let me, I would love to be hospitalero there. I love that town. So but there are other places I could go. I especially enjoyed the albergues that were donativo, that were run by parishes or volunteers, where they had communal meals. Those were the best experiences for me. And I would like to go back and help others to do that.
Actually, that is amazing. So, right now, writing all these books, what are the legacy that you pretend to leave amongst the Camino community? Not just the Camino de Santiago, but like you said, also the Camino de la Via Francesca, the Via Francesca.
Yeah, in the Middle Ages, people went on pilgrimage a lot. I mean, millions walked pilgrimages from all over Europe. And I'd like to see us revive that idea of pilgrimage. And for me, walking the Camino was not just a nice experience, was not just a tourist experience. It was a pilgrimage, which for me means it was a spiritual experience. And I love the idea. I really advocate for people to take the time to have that long experience because it will change your life, and you will realize there's so much more than materialistic, consumeristic life, where all we worry about is money we make or our status. When you're a pilgrim, no one knows what you do. How much money you have, your status, it means nothing.
It doesn't matter.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
And that's the wonderful thing about pilgrimage is you can just be like everyone else. And you experience what everyone else experiences, and who you are otherwise means nothing. And that is a fabulous experience for people to have. And also the idea that you can just take the time out and let all those things in life just kind of slowly wear away, get away from screens, get away from worrying about, email messages, phones, everything that occupies our attention is really important. And also just, I think hours of walking with nothing and silence is just, I found for me, the early mornings walking in the quiet and solitude just did so much for me. They just emptied a lot of stuff out, just all that silence. Just don't have to worry about the noise. And to have those experiences, I think humans need. And so I'm just, my legacy is I hope that I can inspire more people to do that kind of thing. I hope I can inspire people if they feel they can't go that far, do something similar at home.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So we are almost finishing here, but two last questions. First, tell us about this. What is the Walker Press?
Yes. So what I do is because I was a publisher for so many years and worked with authors, I met many people who they couldn't be published. Their book wouldn't be published by a traditional publisher, but I thought that they could publish it themselves, that they could choose the self-publishing route. And so what I do is I help people who have an idea to a project to publish. It could be through a traditional publisher. Maybe they don't know it. They can't figure out what to do. I help them develop their project, and I'm basically a consultant, and I help them put together what I call a publishing plan. And if they want to self-publish it, I can help them self-publish it. So I do. Yeah, I consult with people that want to self-publish. I've got about 5 people I'm working with right now on various projects. Yes, my wife with me. That's the entrance to Assisi.
Yeah.
It was a great day.
So that's amazing.
So the other thing that matters a lot to me is I don't believe in ever retiring.
Yeah.
I believe in doing what you feel a passion for and what you love, and do that as long as you live. And so now I feel like I'm able to be doing the thing that I really love and do it as long as I live, which is writing, sharing about those experiences that I take when I travel and when I do the kind of deep travel, and inspire other people to do things. I mean, I meet people who said, I never thought I could do something like this. And I say, you can do it. You can do it. I met people in their 70s walking the Camino Frances the whole way. And I meet people in their 50s and 60s. So I don't know if I can do it. I say, you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Do you know? And have you helped someone to write his book about the Camino?
I would help people, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, Russ, we're almost finishing here, but one last question. What can you say, or what advice can you give to a pilgrim that will start the Camino for that first time?
I would say prepare yourself. Prepare yourself inwardly by saying, what is it I want to get out of this experience? And think about it very carefully. And I think part of that is I would say do some reading. I always tell someone the very first thing you ever get is get a guidebook. A guidebook will give you an idea of the places you're going to go, how far it is, how you're going to stay. And then I tell people, and I tell people train, learn how to walk 15 miles if you can, if that's as far as you want to go. And learn about where you're going and what the culture and history is like a little bit, so that when you go through it, you will be amazed and you'll say, well, I read about that place, and you'll be able to marvel when you see it, and not just have walked through it and not know. I mean, I've met people said, I didn't have any kind of guidebook. And I think, well, I feel kind of bad for you, because you were walking through this historical sacred landscape, and you were missing things that you didn't know were there. That church you passed by, maybe that was a very famous place, or that bridge you walked over in Puente la Reina. Do you know why that bridge was there and how long it's been there? So that, or that Roman road that you walked in the Meseta, did you know how long that Roman road has been there, or who's walked it before you? So learn by reading and preparing yourself for it, so that you get more out of the experience.
So let me show you something right here. Okay. This photograph, it was taken by me last year on the Windsor Camino. And this is a place called, it's an area on Galicia. It's called the Ribeira Sacra. And actually, is this year patrimony that Spain wants to be, wants that they want to be like world heritage. Sorry, heritage. So and the Winter Camino that I walked last year, it was full of these amazing places. It was really beautiful sightseeing. Not also this, but there is another world site heritage place. It's called Las Medlas, nearby Ponferrada. That on the first stage is just out of the ordinary. And if I was not because of the Camino, I did not hear about it. So for you on the Camino, not just in Spain, also in Italy, what was that really place that really stick out to your head?
What's the place that really stuck out to me? Well, let me mention in Italy, there is a village called Pujo Bustoni. And above Pujo Bustoni, there is a hermitage that St. Francis stayed in. It's about a kilometer straight uphill that you have to walk. And it's a very wonderful, delightful little spot. And my wife and I took about half a day in Pujo Bustoni, and we walked up there. And Pujo Bustoni is one of these towns that you don't know how it holds onto the hillside where it is. It looks like the whole thing's going to fall off the hill, and it just clings to the hillside. That was a very fabulous place that we stayed. And boy, on the Camino, wow, what was the most fabulous place? That would be really hard to say. I really, oh, there were just so many places I loved walking along the Camino Frances. Boy, I'd have to look in a book here for just a second to think what was the best place. You know, there are a lot of places that I noted that I said I want to come back to. Perhaps the one that I think of is Rabanal, which is just before you get to Cruz de Ferro. And so it's like for many people that's kind of the high point. It is the highest point, but also it's a high point inside of getting to the cross. But I like Rabanal because it is the day before people are going to go there. And so like the expectation that the next day, and it's just a beautiful village. And I just loved it.
That actually, regarding your first answer, on the Portuguese Camino, do you know there's on like 25 kilometers before Santiago on the Portuguese Camino, it's a town called Padron. And Padron, many of the pilgrims they don't know this, but it's almost more important to the history of pilgrimage than Compostela. It's because the legend says that the body of Santiago arrived on a boat in that place in Padron, in a place called it's a Roman old Roman town called Idia Flavia. And in Padron, it's the last mostly the last stage before reaching Santiago. There's like this. It's a place called Santiago Monte, and this place it's not well known. Almost none of the pilgrims know about this, but it's really important because the legend says that Santiago Saint James was there preaching the Christianism in that place, and it's like you said, it's also like 1 kilometer uphill, going stairs a little bit further away from the main city. But I don't know. In that time, in that place, I feel the same that I feel arriving in Santiago, and the feel that I am when I arrive in Santiago, when I am there looking out for that cathedral, is just something that I cannot feel in any other place. I don't know why.
That's San Antonio. Outside of Pedron, San Antonio, Convento de San Antonio.
No, not that. Yeah, that's another amazing place.
That's another place.
That's another place. It's
okay.
Convento d'Arbon. That's another place. It may not be on the guides.
So I'm going to have to ask you more about that. That sounds interesting. What I would like to do going back again is I would like to slowly go through some of these places and take more time, just as you mentioned. So I look for those spots that someone like you mentions because they are very special. And someday I would also like to walk the Via de la Plata, Via de Madrid. And you that was the Camino Invierno. That's the winter Camino.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to learn more about that. I want to
That it's just amazing. The only Camino that I have done it that I may feel that it was better than the last one. It was the Primitivo. Let me talk about the Primitivo. The Primitivo, it's just I cannot describe it. The Primitivo. The Primitivo. I had walked it in 2019, and it's 320 kilometers. But most of the pilgrims that walk all the way the French Camino and the Primitivo, they may say to you that it's harder than the French, although it's shorter, but it's harder. But I don't know. I can show you some pictures because it just ah and like you said, there are like this. There's one of actually I'm thinking about doing this again this year, walking again this Camino again, but relate to a different Camino. Well, I will do two Caminos in one. I will do the Camino del Salvador, and then join onto the Primitivo. And in this Camino Primitivo, there are also like big special albergues, like you said, and special places. But there's this one stage. There is the photos that I will show to you. That this stage, it's very similar to the Pyrenees, but it's 40 kilometers just on, and 20 of them are on the mountains, and without nothing. You have nothing. You just pass by one town with one person living there, nothing more. Then you just have the starting point and the finishing point, nothing more. It's just for this stage, just for this stage, it's just amazing. And then I need to go back because there's like this albergue that everyone knows on the Camino. It's called the albergue de Bodenai. Bodenai is the place they call it, and it's a small one, but they just said to me, "You have to be there. You have to go there. It's just so special."
So these pictures you're showing me are from the Camino Invierno or the
No,
Primitivo?
these are from the Primitivo.
Okay.
These are from the Primitivo. On I have the Camino Indian I have on my cell phone, not on the computer. But I don't know. This stage is just outstanding. Look at this. Do you know we are upping down like this? But let me zoom in. Not cool. Nah, okay. Do you see that place over there?
Yeah.
We came from there. They look. Oh, there's like these people. We came from there. Do you see pilgrims over there? And we are here, and they are over
Wow.
there. That's just uh, the last two caminos that okay, I'm Portuguese. I like the Portuguese Camino, but these last two caminos that I've done it are amazing, and I am thankfully because I choose to walk these caminos. I have not the time yet to walk the whole thing, and now when I want to do the French Camino, I want to do entirely. So I want to do all, and so I need right now. I need to pick up like caminos that are like 2 weeks or 3 weeks at the most. That's when I have my vacation, and that's why I chose this from the last two, and they are just really really amazing. Uh, Both special in each way, but the Primitivo for the sightseeings, the Camino Invierno for the sightseeings, and the people are just outstanding. So Russ,
Wonderful.
please, if you need anything, just help me. I want you to know that you have a friend in me. Anything you need, any question you have, please feel free to ask. And
I
some,
I will
and
come and meet you in Portugal. I
please,
promise you that.
please do. Thank you so much for doing this with me. It was really a pleasure.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. I'm very glad to do it.